Okay, everybody. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us here. Back-to-back days on the MAPJ online education. Yesterday was great with the fellows from Athletic Motion Golf. Today we're really happy to be joined from Scotland, one of my favorite places on earth, by Gavin Dear with Shotscope. Gavin and Shotscope have become a really good partner. We're excited about our future at the MAPJ with them and some of the things they're going to bring to the table with us. And number one is they have a great product, but they also have some great information that they gather through their products. So Gavin's going to hang with us for a little bit today and talk to us a little bit about their product, what they do. Love to get questions from all of you about it, so you can get a little more detailed information. So throw those down in the chat for me. I'll monitor those and send them Gavin's way. Gavin, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me, Mark. Um, Thanks everybody for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and listen to this. If you were at the teaching summit last week, it's similar. I'll give a bit more of a demo, but happy to take any questions. Throw them in the chat. Happy to sort of do that, and then invariably it breaks out into a bit of a discussion from there. So go from here. So you may or may not have heard of Shotscope. We are the second largest seller of golf electronics in the UK. We've been around in the US for quite a while. We're obviously based in Scotland. And even though we work in a variety of different segments within GPS, we're most known for performance tracking. And what I'll show you today is a new part of our software that we released, which is called Shotscope Academy, and it's for coaches, and it's to really have a look into a golfer's on-course playing performance. So as I mentioned, we're from Scotland. We're leaders in subscription-free data tracking. I'll mention that numerous times over the next 30 minutes. We do a range of different products, whether it be GPS watches, handhelds, rangefinders. Our ethos, we want golfers to improve through data collection. We think that, and I think everybody on this call would agree that data has become very important to the golf industry over the last 15 years, whether it be a TrackMan, whether it be ShotLink, whether it be different elements of club fitting, performance data, and invariably for the masses and the golfers to really start using that on course, it's about not taking away from their game, not distracting them, not slowing down the game, making it simple. And we'd like to think at Shotscope we do that very well. We've got industry-leading customer service. We're known for that. Got a team of 5 that work out of here in Scotland, primarily communicate through email, but a lot of that is because they can go in and fix or figure out what the user is having trouble with and get back to them in one email, which is key. And we own our own course mapping data, which allows us to do what we do. We took a decision early on to build out all of our course mapping information. I've been played, I've been at college, I've been in the golf industry for, goodness me, 15 years now, and it amazed me at how often a golf course changes something within their course. And what that having our own course mapping data allows us is we can go and make that change. If it's the front and back nines have been flipped, if a bunker has been added, we can make that change within minutes, update our system, and the Shotscope app will provide our golfers the ability to update their device with that information instantly. So, with some companies, you might find that a course update could take 6 months. With us, we like to say that we'll do it within 2 days. On the shot tracking side, we've recorded over 200 million shots, fast approaching 250. And we see shot improvement. So 4.1 shots per round, we see improvement is the average from our users. We know with the implementation of Shotscope Academy, that can be improved, providing instructor knowledge into that into that sort of understanding of on-course performance data will lead to greater insights. It will lead to greater improvement. So these the images you can see on the phones there. So that is really a snapshot into some of the screens that our golfers will see. You can see on the left we have shots plotted, from the left even shots plotted, then club distances, a basic hole overview, and then you can see an example of our tee shots there, our tee shots page. We've got handicap benchmarking across the app, whether that be in traditional stats or within strokes gained. So again, all of the information set up for the user to be able to gain insights. And whilst that works for our users and it creates improvement, you know, with the average improvement being 4 shots, we know that they're not maximizing this. We know that a 22 handicapper isn't able to interpret the data enough so that the limited practice time that they spend can be directed in the correct area of the game. And that's where the real need came from Academy. I've mixed it up slightly because normally at this point I get some questions about how do you collect data. So we're going to move on to that now. So we pride ourselves on having numerous different collection methods. The tracking tags that you can see come with all of our devices that are tracking enabled. You get 16 tags. They're unique. There's no batteries in them. Once they go in the clubs, they just stay in the clubs. And we've got 3 different mechanisms. So the V3 watch is the simplest. It's what we like to call automated tracking. The golfer will swing the golf club. We understand what's a waggle, a practice shot, a swing. We record the shot. It automatically detects the tag. It automatically knows what club you're holding. The handheld in the middle is manual. So what the golfer does in that instance is they hold the tag against it. That registers what club they're going to hit. They then hit the shot. We also have a third one coming out in a couple of months, which is similar to the handheld, but it's going to work directly with the phone. So again, it's just tags in that instance, and you would hold it against your phone to capture the data. So providing different ways allows us to cope and make it the simplest. Personally, I use the V3 watch. We find in Europe, avid golfers wear watches about 75% of the time, whereas in the US, it would be 20. The watch, as I say, is the simplest way to record data. And again, I'll reiterate, so this is a little breakdown of the watch showing some of our technology. And as you can see in there is the antenna, which is inside the strap. And that works a little bit like a hotel key card. It expands the field out to 10 centimeters. So when you're standing over the shot, you can understand the watch can understand what club you've got in your tag and what club you've got in your hands. And then the internals of the watch works out what is a shot over what is just a swing.
Hey, Gavin, just a
Yep.
quick question for you. I heard you say that that stat about the watches. It's very high over there. I'm curious if you have any hypothesis as to why that is. Is it weather related? Is it something? I'm just curious because you brought that up before, and I thought that was really interesting because you don't see that much here with the watch. It's very little.
So I think it's historic. And the reason for that is, you know, if you rewound to the early 2000s when GPS started to become a thing within golf, it was led by Bushnell and rangefinders effectively in the US. Whereas in the UK, it was led by a company called SkyCaddy, and they brought it on handheld originally.
Okay.
So I think it's from that. What I would say is watches are the fastest growing DMD segment in the US. So laser sales are pretty static year on year, whereas watches are growing at least 50% every year.
Okay.
And to be honest, that is probably partly because of the improvement in design, the fact that they can be worn off the course now as well. the, the cost of the rangefinders are generally more, and they're very, very simple to use, incredibly simple. So yeah,
Cool.
probably a historic reason, probably not where you were thinking.
No, no, that's cool. Thanks.
Um, so as I mentioned, um, we brought out a thing called Academy, and again, the real premise was we've got 140,000 users. They're all tracking their performance. They're gathering all this data, and there's a vastly different level of interpretation going on and gathering of insights. Our systems do a great job at highlighting insights for golfers, but as you'll know, there's a level of interpretation within the golfer and understanding of golf from amateur golfers, and so a lot would come to us and say, "Hey, I'd love to share this data with my coach. I'd love to share this data with my club pro." And so we quickly understood that there would be a market for this and a way to communicate. We spent a lot of last year building this, and we launched it just prior to the PGA Show. And we like to think that new coaches can bring new users onto the system and into the Shotscope platform to gather data, create tailored practice plans, remove the awkward first 10 minutes of a lesson where you're trying to gather as much information about, hey, has the golfer been playing? What should we work on today? How have they been playing? And really sort of, you could spend a couple of minutes looking at their account and say, hey, we're going to go and work on bunker play. We're going to go and work on wedge play. And you could show them why you've made that decision. So let me fire up the system. Okay, so this is a Academy account that I've set up, and I can show you a bit of some of the power of it and some of the insights that you can see and understanding of what you can do. So on the left-hand side, we've got all the golfers that I'm attached to. I've got a news feed which shows the latest rounds of the golfers that in my account that have played. I've got the ability to message back and forth, and I can look at player analysis. So instantly, it's quite simple. You can just keep updated with what your golfers are playing, where they're playing, how they're playing, see what scores. I also have the ability within my players element to create teams. So I can segment golfers there, whether that be some of the uses we've seen already is I teach a ladies class on a Wednesday. I want all of those golfers in one segment. I've got a high school team. I've got a scratch team. I want to segment them. And I'll show you why that's important in a minute. Player analysis gives us the ability to go in and look immediately, once it fires up, of all of my golfers. Who's played this year, how many rounds they've played, average score, strokes gained total, front nine. I can look through all of these different areas. I can also sort based on high or low. So again, it's great for understanding and looking at a golfer's information against their peers. As I mentioned on teams, I can segment that. So I can make it only Shotscope employees, for instance, in this interest. And you can see that I don't get to play much. Part of having a young family and living in Scotland at this time of year. But I can also use handicap benchmarking. So I can benchmark against 15 handicap golfer at this point and look at strokes gained. I can also, if I want to, look at specific golf courses. So if you've got a group that are playing one golf course or you've got multiple golf courses in your facility, you can just look at one. You also have the ability to go back in history. So again, this will become more and more powerful over time.
Hey, Gavin, we got
Yep.
a quick question on the board here from Blaine. He just said, can you elaborate about affiliate programs, um, discount codes, selling online, etc.? I think we're sort of getting into the, getting it for your students and any professional use, that kind of thing. I think you understand where I'm headed there.
Yeah, sure. So again, one of the things we do, so as part of this rollout, there's no cost with Academy, and we want to try and create as much of a winning situation for golf instructors. So whether that be um, golf instructors want to drop ship and make some margin there, or hold stock, we run affiliate programs now. Predominantly, they're for influencers. However, we have some coaches that I would say operate online. They use affiliate codes. Um, so we want to try and create a position where not only is the golf instructor using Academy to improve their students, but they've got ability to sell to students and make some revenue that way. Again, Blaine, what I would say is we can work in a number of different ways. The best thing is just to reach out. I understand that everybody on this call probably has a slightly different setup. So it's a case of really understanding. So yes, you're able to sell and promote Academy online. Absolutely.
Yeah, and Gavin, I think the other point that was made that we've talked about before, and I think that is an important one for you guys, is that was asked, I think, at the teaching summit to you too, multiple times because people couldn't believe it, but there is no subscription fee at all.
No, so there's no subscription fee for golfers and none for instructors or use of Academy. I mean, we see Academy doing two things for us. One is helping our golfers and our users gain insights and more value out of the technology. And secondly, we see it as a mechanism to get ourselves more well known and expand our reach and effectively have more golfers improve. I'll continue on a little bit. So again, some of the other advantages, if I take Jen, who is a very good golfer who works for Shotscope, I can click on her and I can go into her individual account. I can have a look through, she's currently in Spain, so she played yesterday at La Reserva. I can see that score. I can see how she played, her strokes gained performance, her average driving distance, her fairways and reg. I can see all of her general data from that round. What I like to do is float back a year and I can show you something else. So if I go back a year, this is her home course in Scotland. So I have the ability to use course analysis. Now, what I would say is all of this system is available on the player side as well, so they can see it. So she played, this is her home course, as I say. So we're able to look and give her a hole by hole ranking. So I can see what hole she found was the hardest. I can also see her strokes gained rank, which again, that was the 6th hole for that her course. She played it 13 times last year. I can see her course form, her front nine, back nine comparison, some of her general data for that course, her tee shots, putting performance. But one of the most powerful elements is I can then go in and look at that specific hole. Again, I can see her whole form. She finds it hardest. She's 0.6 over par for a +4 handicapper is not great. I can then look at the individual stats for that hole, but I can also look at shots plotted. So that is every tee shot result that she hit last year on this hole. Dogleg right, par 4. She's hit driver down there a few times, which is probably not the right place. So from a course strategy standpoint, you can sit there and work with a golfer and say, right, what are you doing? How are you thinking on that hole? And you can refine effectively. So again, I can see that. I can see on approach shots. You can see some of the chip outs she had to make there. Yeah, it's very powerful, especially for somebody like if you're teaching any high school golfers, young golfers that are trying to really improve and get to the next level. This could be a real tool.
Gavin, is there and I don't mean to use an American term here, throw you under the bus here on the, but if you can't answer it, that's fine. But I'm curious, is there a segment, because your average improvement you said was like 4.1? Is there a segment of, or a handicap segment or group that you find has benefited the most from the technology? I mean, we're obviously looking at, yours and this girl who's a really good player, but is there a segment of the population that makes a bigger jump using the technology versus another?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. So within that 4.1, I think for golfers under the handicap of 8, it's at 1.1 shots or 1.3 shots. Obviously, it depends on your starting handicap, that level of improvement. Um, it's interesting. So out of our golfers that are on board, 51% of them are coached, which we know is massively higher than what the average would be. I think the average might be about 14, I think, is roughly what I've heard. So we've got certainly more avid golfers who are Shotscope users and capturing performance data. I don't think it's necessarily down to the level of golfer. It's how keen they are and how keen, I think if you rewound 20 years, you can all remember sort of the guy who captured data, had a spreadsheet, pen and paper, was gathering it. And you kind of looked at him and thought he looks like a bit of a sort of stats nerd, really. He's kind of moved away from that. It's moved away to something that golfers like to see, the overheads, and understand what they did and compare themselves to um, their peers, or understand and look at something that you might see on PGA Tour coverage at the weekend. And hey, I can see the same level of information about my game. So I think the answer in a short way, no, there's not a specific group of golfers that benefits more or less. I do see a massive, massive benefit to a golfer who was 14 to 20 trying to move to the next level. I can really see how a golfer could use something like this within course strategy to improve their golf. And certainly Jen's done that as a golfer over the last couple of years. But at the same time, for a guy who plays off 9 and struggles on 3 holes on their course, it's going to be hard for you to identify that in a round, in a sort of hour lesson or through a course of lessons. But hey, you might be able to look at course strategy takes and hey, let's walk out to that hole. What are you thinking? What do you hit off the tee? We can see this, and here's your performance. So there's so many elements um, that I really think it covers most golfers.
Cool. Thanks.
Um, Within this as well, so obviously I'm in sort of Jen's element of account. I can also go into her performance. So I can see what we do is we have a performance average distance, which takes outliers and out. It takes a lot of bad shots out of it. It takes a lot of good shots out of it to give you what we would consider a good swing and a good strike distance. Not meant to be a track man. Compare against that. It's more to give the golfer an indication of how far they should hit the ball with a good shot. We also just show straight average and longest. We have the ability to look at tee shots left and right, so I can hover over every one and understand what course that was. I can actually click on it if I want to, and it'll take me to that specific shot. Again, it's a little bit more different. Again, I can look at trends of distances over rounds, fairway success, different tee shots, different clubs. I can also, on everything, look at strokes gained. So again, for Jen, let's compare her to a scratch handicapper. She's losing shots against a male scratch handicap golfer for tee shots, short game and putting, improving on approaches. So you can have a little look into her approaches. She's improving on that. She's much better than a scratch golfer on wedge play from 50 to 100 yards. unsurprisingly, being a female golfer, she doesn't carry some of the distance. She's probably hitting a lot more club. So she loses a little bit when she's getting over 200 yards.
And Gavin,
Um,
those yardages you were giving us earlier, just as a reminder, and just so I'm clear too, but I think this is what those are just total dart distances where the ball ends up correctly. That's not a
yes,
specific carry distance.
it's not a
Okay.
specific carry distance.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
And to be honest, the club distances is one of the key factors for improvement we see within golfers. Golfers don't know how far they hit the ball. So quite simply giving them a guide there helps them. So again, quite simply, you've got so much stats and information that you can analyze quite quickly, what a golfer would be. So for Jen, we look at strokes gained, last 10 rounds, she's losing strokes gained. We can look at that for 2022. So our last 10 rounds doesn't have the same picture as last year's did. Last year's stats were quite a significant amount of rounds. So, if we're going to go and work on something, it might be tee shots. And for her as a golfer, she's missing quite a few to the right. She's missing quite a few to the left. So maybe it's a point of view of aiming, target play, understanding a little bit more of what it can do. Obviously, with a +4, it's very fine margins. You'll see larger trends on a higher handicap golfer. But again, you can quite quickly work and direct something towards it. And then you can also understand, has that improved the golfer over the next period of time?
Gavin, got a
Um,
couple questions on the board here.
yep.
To throw to you while you're in there. Ed's asking, assuming the data are displayed in the Academy dashboard are coming from Shotscope data collection products, is there a way to input the data? This is a good one, Ed. Is there a way to input the data oneself after round without having used the technology on the course? And he acknowledges it may not be as accurate doing that way, of course, but is there a way to manually put that in?
No,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Okay.
Really simple, that one. No. So what we can do, we offer different collection methods again, but there isn't a simple way to input it
Okay.
immediately.
Gotcha. And then as a follow up here, and this is sort of in those same lines, Bobby Lopez is asking, how does the system handle something like a mulligan? Bobby, what's a mulligan? We don't take those, right? But provisionals, I've taken plenty of those. So how does the system handle those when you're getting these
Yeah,
cards?
incredibly well. As you can imagine, we've encountered pretty much everything over development. So a couple of different ways you can handle something like a provisional. You can actually handle it through the technology while you're on the course. So you can tell the watch or the device, hey, I'm going to hit a provisional. And at that point, it starts off a system that says it'll reset, it'll let you, so you could change clubs. Say you hit a 3-wood for your second, for your provisional. It allows it captures that shot. It'll then change and ask you, did you find your original ball? And it'll also allow you to set a timer to look for it for 3 minutes. So you could potentially hit that provisional with a 3-wood, walk down, find your original ball, say, hey, I found it. It will cancel out that provisional. The other option is you could throw down a ball, hit it, and you can deal with it when a golfer uploads a round. We take them through a sign-off process. We allow them to verify their score, double check, and they can add or edit anything they want at that point.
Great.
So
Great.
two ways.
That's awesome. Thanks. I think we would all love to have that provisional search timer, by the way, for a lot of people we play with. For
It,
for those
it,
who have a lengthy version of 3 minutes, but we'll just save that one for another time. So go ahead, Gavin.
yeah, absolutely. And lastly, obviously we cover basic scoring. So again, we'll do trends for front nine scoring, back nine scoring. You look at strokes gained, your performance over time. So again, gains 2022, you see it's relatively consistent. You can see as certain factors have increased, have a little closer look for trends, but you may find that improved tee shots creates better scoring for a golfer. You can imagine that for some it's putting. It depends where their weakness is, but again, it highlights and gives you that information. So you can do things to run through it. You can message back and forth with a golfer. You can keep in touch with them. You can have as many golfers on the system as you want. As I'll say again, it's free, doesn't cost you anything at all. You can use it just to keep in touch with golfers. You can use it for strategy sessions, heavy in depth look before a lesson and understand what you're going to work on with a specific golfer. Or you could use it. We've got some some coaches already here that are using it for teams and trying to, potentially they've got a better player in their team and they want to use that to try and educate some of the other golfers about course strategy and performance. So multitude of different ways to use the system. Like to think it's very user friendly, very simple. So again, I'll click back to the presentation. Yeah.
Gavin, while you bring that up, that reminds me of a question. It's been, I know, a whirlwind week for you, so I don't expect you to remember this. But somebody at the teaching summit actually asked you a question about that with teams. Like if you were using it and set up say there were 10 people on the team, so to speak, under the account, could you remove somebody and their data and add somebody else in? You don't understand what I'm asking? I think somebody
Yeah,
asked you this
yeah,
at the
yeah.
summit.
No, I remember that question. Yeah. So, I mean, you could do that for sure. So you could take a watch off somebody and give it to another golfer and you would have them create a new account and attach that watch to the new account. And the advantage for doing that is you'll want to retain the first golfer's data. So again, we're constantly adding to the system. So one of the ads is going to be, the guys are working on it just now, is with course analysis. I showed it to you when it was just Jen's data and Jen's rounds at her home golf course. Well, if you took a team to play Congressional and they played a tournament there, what we're going to allow you to do is put that team's golfers' data all on one hole. So now you can see, hey, I'm just throwing out names because I can see them. Jay hit driver, I hit driver, Mark hit 3-iron. You could sit at night and say, well, Mark, why did you choose to hit 3-iron off that hole? Why would everybody else at driver? Well, if you go and play at Congressional 5 years in a row with your team, before they even go there, now you've got a bank of data. You can take everybody, all of your golfers that have played at Congressional and pull all that data to the 7th hole. That, hey, traditionally we find the 7th hole the hardest on the golf course. Let's have a look at why. Right, what is going to be the game? I want everybody to hit driver, or hey, I want everybody to play smart and avoid this bunker. So you want to make sure that you maintain the golfers, especially in a team environment, on the system, but you can certainly pass that watch or device onto another golfer and get them to set up another account.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's cool.
So again, I'll go a bit, Blaine jumped the gun a little bit earlier. As I've said before, so there's no subscriptions. Effectively, for a golfer to use our system, it's a sort of one-time cost at the start to buy one of our devices. They typically range, I mean, the new tag system is going to cost, I think, $99 up to our most expensive watch is $300. There's a variety of different price points and ways. They all collect data. There's no differentiation dependent on device when you're in the system for the golfer. We're actively looking for coaches and instructors to take on Academy, use it as a way to gain extra revenue by either stocking or drop shipping or selling. We do run affiliate opportunities as well. We do personal use discounts. We do all of that. We're, as I said earlier, we're very understanding that everybody's in a slightly different situation. We want to maximize this and make sure that Shotscope golfers or Shotscope users are able to engage with their coach, their instructor, get the most out of their data that they're collecting. Was the final thing I was going to say, which I've just forgotten. I thought I was going to mention something else. Oh yeah. So another stage, I spoke a little bit about the multiple golfers collecting. This also came up when I was at the teaching summit. Obviously, we have numerous users, so another stage is going to be at one point we will open up the coaching system. So we'll allow our users to go out and find and instructors to effectively sort of advertise their services on the system, that they're Shotscope Academy users, and we'll allow our users to go and search if they want to see golfers coaches in person or if they want to see coaches online. I know that's become a relatively large business since the pandemic. And we'll allow golfers to search. I know that will apply to some, it may not apply to others who are at private facilities, etc. But we will give that opportunity once our guys have got onto it, from a point of view of building.
Gavin,
That's about me.
can you can you talk a little bit about putting and just data capture with that? That sometimes is a bit of a sore point with other systems, not to be named here. But I'm curious just about data collection with that. You know, where the whole location is and accuracy, data collection, all that fun stuff.
Yep. Okay. So the way we do putting is similar to the rest of the game. So obviously you put a tag into the top of your putter. But obviously it's, we quickly found out, especially with the watches, that obviously it's the most movement, and it's not unlike a golfer to randomly walk over to the side of the green and have a few sort of flinch with their putter. So putting's captured the same way. The watch gathers the information from the tag whilst you're putting. But when you walk onto the green, our screen changes to what we call pin collect, and it will show 0, 1, 2, and 3. And what we encourage the golfer to do is when they pick the ball at the hole, they click the button that refers to the number of putts they've had on that hole. And what that does is it allows the system a check. Now we're about 94% right without it. But for instance, if you've had a 20-foot putt, you've knocked it up to a foot, you tap it in, you click the button, you press 2. What it does is it tells the system, hey, look for 2 putts, but also tells us where that pin is located. So we map that location of that flag. So now when you upload your data at the end of that round, we know all your shots you've hit, but we also know the 18 pin locations from that round. So we're able to put it up there. If you don't do that pin collect, the system, like I say, will still recognize 94% of the time what putts you took correctly. But we don't know where the flag is. So we put the flag in the middle of the green. And we would encourage the golfer at that stage to then go through the sign-off process and move the location of the flag. So a couple of different ways. Pin collect, I am now in this sad situation where if I'm not wearing the watch, I still think I need to click the button when I get the ball at the hole and try and click my wrist. But it becomes part of your game. It becomes very simple.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Um, Gavin, I do have one question for you that everybody might benefit from. This is a non-shot scope question, but it is a Scotland question because I wanted to ask you because you and I talked about it. Your favorite give us your top 3 favorite courses in Scotland while we have you, in case
In
we visit.
Scotland,
Yeah.
in no particular order, North Berwick. I'll give you a quick reason for each one. Because it is playable and fun, and it can be absolutely hellish at the same time in a strong wind. Royal Dornoch, I played quite a few competitions up there. It's great fun. Not commonly played because of its location. And then the last one would be Muirfield, I would say. And for clarity, I was a member at Carnoustie for a long time. I've played every course pretty much that's worth playing. But I would go Muirfield. There's something about Muirfield. It's incredibly difficult. It's not like most links courses where it's either into the wind or downwind. Obviously, you tend to find it's a lot of crosswinds, and all the holes are consistently in this different directions, so you're constantly having to change and understand your wind location. And the par threes, long safe on every par three, but it leaves you downhill coming back the way, and it's brutal. So
Hmm.
those would be my three.
Awesome. If you were Jean Van de Velde and coming to the 18th tee at
At
Carnoustie in
Carnoustie,
'99, what would you have hit?
I was there. I was there.
You were there. Oh my
Um,
God. Sorry, I had to witness that.
I think he's well. I don't know because it worked out okay for everybody here in the end.
Well,
But
oh yeah, that's true. Sorry, I forgot your guy won, but
um, I think it's driver off on 18 at Carnoustie all day. It has to be. You can't. You need to hit it as far down there as you can. And once he got there, he got incredibly lucky. And at that point, he needs to go and take a wedge
yeah.
and knock it up there. But it's got to be driver. If you don't hit driver, unless it's absolutely straight down wind, um, you've got too much left into the green. So yeah, and again, look, the part of me with stats, one of the things that stats tells you is be aggressive, hit driver off the tee,
Mm,
balls in hand. So one point you control the lie, hit driver.
there you go. Okay. Gavin, where just last point here, just information for everybody in terms of how they can find you, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So as I say, delighted to set anybody up. Gavin Dear at shotscope.com is probably the best point. Send the email through to me, and happy to answer any questions, set people up with accounts, more information on affiliates, set up academy links, can do all of that.
Awesome. Okay. Um, well, everybody, before we sign off here, just again a reminder, because I said I was going to say it again at the beginning of the call, is next Monday, March 6th. Can't believe that's actually next Monday, 1 o'clock. Um, Dean Kendall with us on leadership. He's done some great seminars when he was with GBN. We've heard some really good feedback. So if you're into that stuff, and anybody who has staff working for them should be. So we hope that you'll join us for that. You can sign up mapga.com, and we'll be right here for that one. The link will be sent out to all of you. In the meantime, we hope everybody has a good rest of the day. Gavin, thanks so much for partnering up with our section. We appreciate it, and all the time you spent flying all over the place. We're gonna let Gavin get out of here because he's got kid at home. It's getting late, and his wife is due anytime now. So we don't want to take any more of his time. We want to get him out of here as quick as possible. So, Gavin, thanks very much for your time. We really appreciate it, man.
No, thanks, Mark. Appreciate everybody's time, and yeah, have a good afternoon for everybody.
All right. Sounds good.
Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks again to Shotscope. We'll see you all soon.